first graders, you need your books. Get your pencil boxes. You don't have to have your crayons for this lesson, but you might like it. It might help a little bit. And your bag of pattern blocks. All right, guys, do you see here, use pattern blocks, draw to show your work? It's best not to trace these, but sometimes like today, we're going to need to trace them. Be absolutely sure if you're tracing pattern blocks, you're using a pencil so that if we get marks on the blocks, we can erase them. So lesson 12.3, combine two-dimensional shapes. You did this some already with three-dimensional shapes, didn't you? So we're going to be doing this with three-dimensional shapes. And you guys, I know, have done a ton of work with these pattern blocks in the classroom, not like assignments, but you've just played with them. And that's going to do a lot to help you with today's work. So you can see I've dumped all of mine out of the bag. That way I have them easy to use, but I'm going to push all the ones off to here except for what I actually need. So here is the story. Karen has some pattern blocks. She puts two triangles together. So get two triangles. You decide how you're going to put them together and trace to show the shape that you make. So that's up to you. Now, really, that's the only way to put it together, right? You could put it together that way. You can turn it around and stuff, but no matter how you put it, all the sides are the same length, aren't they? And however you turn it, you're going to end up with this kind of shape. So go ahead and trace that. Then turn the page. All right, so again, remember, this is kind of an example of what you're doing. This is not the question you have to answer for today. How many trapezoids do you need to make a hexagon? So you get out your trapezoids, and you can see that two trapezoids together will make a hexagon. You can also see our pieces are a little bit bigger than what they have here in the book, aren't they? And then do you see how they did actually draw this and color it in? So we're going to be actually drawing and coloring on this. Two trapezoids make a hexagon. Now, the really important thing is not to memorize all this. I bet if you went to your parents and you said, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, how many trapezoids make a hexagon? Well, they wouldn't know because it would depend on the trapezoid and it would depend on the hexagon and several things. But it's the action of looking at how we rearrange these pieces to make new things. That's what we need to do, is start being really flexible with shapes. All right, so let's look down here at number 1. Ooh, moving the papers is around hard because I've got pattern blocks everywhere. All right, how many rhombuses make a hexagon? So those are these blue ones here. You're going to take these and put them on top, and you're going to stack them exactly on there so that when you look down from the top, do you see how there's not really yellow sticking out? I'm not putting them on like this, right? I'm really lining up the edges. So go ahead and take those blue rhombuses and put them on. The technical word for it is rhombi, but that just sounds funny. So we're going with rhombuses. Actually, it may be rhombuses. I don't know. All right. So you can fill in that last part. Then, boys and girls, I want you to actually trace those so that you end up here with this actual thing, right? So this may seem kind of like a waste of time, but again, what we're really wanting here is our brain to start being really flexible with how we use these shapes, and actually tracing them and coloring them is going to make that better. Now, I traced these kind of lightly so that I wouldn't get marks on it. And now I'm going back and I'm making my marks darker. And then go ahead and get a blue crayon, color it in. And down at the bottom, 3 rhombuses make a hexagon, right? How many triangles make a trapezoid? Now, again, trapezoids can be different shapes and triangles can be different shapes also, can't they? So we're talking specifically about our pattern block triangles and our pattern block trapezoids. So boys and girls, can you see what would need to go there? So that you cover that with these triangles, and then go ahead, get the triangles down here, and you should have a third triangle right in there. Trace them, color them, and down at the bottom, 3 triangles make a trapezoid. Let's keep going. Whoops, not that page. Here we go. How many triangles make a hexagon? Now, do you remember me saying you might need to do a little imagining? I think you've got what you need for this. But this is easier, I'll tell you this, with wooden cubes, because these foam ones, they're kind of trying to float around on you, aren't they? You put them somewhere and they just kind of seem to almost move all by themselves. So go ahead and finish that. Then trace it. And that I recognize that tracing it is not easy, especially because you're going to have so many of these little ones you got to trace, right? You can trace around that shape and then you got to move them and trace some more, and you shouldn't just have that, right? You need to have all the rest of this in here. So I know this can be a little squirrely. That means it can be like, you know, like squirrels, they just sort of run around. They're not really trying to cooperate. They do their own thing. So these can be a little squirrely like that. They can kind of run off and do stuff, but do your best to trace each of those triangles, then color it green, and then count how many triangles was that? Make that hexagon. How many triangles make a rhombus? That one is going to be a lot easier, right? You guys can go ahead and do that one. Make sure once you've done it, you move the rhombus to the side, put down your new triangle formed rhombus, and trace not just around the outside, trace around the outside, and then separate it and get that line down the middle also. All right, now, here you have a question to solve. Circle a block to show your answer. Use me 2 times to make this shape. Now, obviously, they're not trying to have you actually trace and fill that in, right? You're going to need to get that hexagon and see how many rhombuses did you put there? Was 2 what you needed? Go ahead and try it with the triangles, although you could check that up above. You have some other shapes in here. Go ahead and see what you can do with this square. The square is the same size as one end of that. Pull out this kind of rhombus. This is like a flattened rhombus. What happens with these? Can you do anything with any of these others? Although these 2, they're not even options down here, are they? So go ahead, whichever one you do 2 times to get it, circle that block. Over here, 2 times to make this shape. Now this is a little more tricky because you don't actually have this already, do you? I'm going to give you a little hint. If you use a trapezoid with a triangle stuck on the end, do you see you kind of get that parallelogram shape? So now you've got this and you can see what pattern blocks do you put on top of this? One type of pattern block 2 times. What makes that? Go ahead and figure that out, circle which one it is, and then we're on to the last page. All right, it says here already, 2 triangles make a rhombus. How many triangles make 3 rhombuses? So here's one rhombus. You need to make another one, but don't use the blue ones. You've got to make another one out of triangles. And then you need to make a third rhombus out of triangles. How many? How many triangles make 3 rhombuses? And then down here, how many rhombuses did you use to, or do you use to make a hexagon? And I think you've already done that on one of your pages, so you can probably flip back. Otherwise, if you can't find it, get that hexagon back out, use your rhombuses and figure out how many you need. Then go ahead and color in the circle for the one that gives you the answer. All right, boys and girls, not too tricky. They're trying to kind of warm you up to some of these with easy things. And that's a really important strategy, is for us to start feeling some of these things out with something that's manageable. Otherwise, we might all of a sudden get a complicated problem and our brains have no idea how to go about figuring this out. So we're starting with some of these simpler things so that our brains start knowing what to try as we figure it out. It doesn't mean we're going to know the answer bing right away, but it means that our brains start figuring out, let's try this first. Okay, that didn't work. All right, let's try this next. that didn't work, but it kind of reminds me of this other thing. So let's try that thing. And then maybe that works. Keep thinking flexibly. We'll see you guys later. Bye.